India's top athletes for Commonwealth Games. He has been a driving force behind high-performance sports in India.
I was around probably 7 or 8 years old when I saw these two young guys, must be in their 20s, our neighbors behind our house. Every evening, they would train with makeshift weights on the terrace. I was curious because they looked like superheroes to me. So one day, I walked upstairs and asked them, "Can I also do what you're doing?" They looked at me, smiled and said, "Start when you are 16. I didn't like that answer. So I picked up some bricks and used them like dumbbells. I tied two circular bricks to a pole and used it like a barbell. I even oiled myself up because clearly listening is half the game, right? I even had a small face mirror to check my posture. I trained for a few days, maybe for a month, enthusiastically. Then I stopped, caught up with studies and sports. I came back to it years later, but that spark, it never left. Back then, I had two choices, either to lift or to play sports. Today, if you want to begin your fitness journey, you are immediately overwhelmed. There are gyms, yoga studios, CrossFit boxes, calisthenic parks, running clubs, and there are so many different formats: HIIT, Zone 2 training, hybrid training, calisthenics, and if you open up the app store, you will see 117,000 fitness apps. I'm not joking. So it is bound to be that you are overwhelmed. And for some reason, and somehow you get started, you're immediately hit with FOMO. You are missing out. This trend, that event. So today, I coach elite athletes across multiple different sports. I have trained athletes across cricket, kabaddi, football, wrestling in multiple different leagues like South Africa T20 League, Pro Kabaddi League, Indian Super League, Women's Wrestling Team. You may think at the top with the elite athletes, this becomes easier. But it comes in different shapes. They have to choose between different training gears, recovery protocols, or nutrition protocols, and they are constantly getting pulled in different directions. Which input to trust, which input or information is worth listening to. And psychologist Barry Schwartz calls this phenomena as the paradox of choice. Initially, when you have too many choices, it feels like we have the freedom to choose, but eventually it leads to overwhelm, decision paralysis, and even regret. When we have too many choices to make from, we feel we are responsible to make the right decision. And when we are not able to do that, we feel responsible and we blame ourselves. So what happens? How does it impact our body, our mind, our performance? When we have too many choices, it leads to confusion. Confusion, you may think, is not able to make the right choice, but it has a deeper impact. It has an impact on your attention, on your clarity, and on your mental energy. And this leads to something called cognitive overload. This is what the psychologists term as. It is the energy and the effort to take or to process choices. When right from your warm-up, your sleep is something to optimize for, then your mind never gets to get idle. Should I do HIIT today, Zone 2 training? Should I use that new recovery modality? Or should I skip training altogether? These questions, these decisions may seem very small, but together they stack up and eat up your mental bandwidth. And in the middle of all this decision fatigue, a lot of us turn to tech, and data. We think more data is going to solve this problem. I believe in data. I use data with my athletes every single day to improve their performance. And I believe in it. But just like with any other tools, if the data is not reducing doubt, instead it is increasing doubt, it's not going to be useful. I remember training an athlete who used to be obsessed about every single number. The hoop data, the Strava data, the calorie numbers, everything had to be on point. If something was off, it would really take him off. I joked with him once that you need a tracker to track all the trackers that you have. But I worked with him. We simplified the process. We picked a few metrics and I asked him to consistently monitor it. And it worked. You may think that it is just the athletes. But as a coach, even I am caught up in this loop. I have found myself struggling with sleep at times because all the data, all the information, all the conversation, all the choices that we have to make during the day, it would replay. My body is still, but my mind is active. It is constantly playing. So I came up with a simple recovery protocol. No screen after 7 p.m. No social media. Go for a walk or read a book or spend time with my loved ones. That really helped. We think and we chase better performance, better workouts, better times. But what we don't realize is that what is calling the shot from behind the scenes is our nervous system, particularly our autonomic nervous system. Our autonomic nervous system is composed of two parts, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for our fight or flight response, whereas our parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the rest or digest response. Both are important. But in a world that we live in, we're constantly scrolling, constantly responding, constantly reacting. It is our sympathetic nervous system which is constantly working and is turned on. It is always switched on. We do not allow the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the recovery, to work. It has been shown in research that if you activate your parasympathetic nervous system with breath work or mindfulness, it impacts your heart rate variability, your cortisol level lowers, and so many different physiological things happen. Sometimes with elite athletes, it is not a new training protocol that works. What really works is a new, or rather something very simple, a recovery protocol. We utilize guided breath works, post-session down regulation, walking cool downs, digital switch offs, not just as a relaxation tool, but something as a competitive edge. So what do we do with all this? Where do we go from here? How do we move forward? By anchoring ourselves with something deeper, not by chasing every single thing. We think that peak performance is about, it's about just working harder. Hustling is the real deal, right? But peak performance is about better toggling. Toggling between stress and recovery, between tension and release, between doing and being. And that is how peak performance comes. I remember I started doing a lot of things. I did a marathon, I did multiple distance cycling, I did Ironman distance triathlons, but I always came back to strength training. Not because it was fancy, not because it was trendy, not because it was in fashion, but because it brought me back to the boy with the brick and mirror. Back to simplicity, back to rhythm. In a world which is constantly telling us to do more, be more, chase more, maybe what we don't need is another option, another input, another information. Maybe what we need is just to pause. Because in a world of constant option, pausing isn't falling behind. It is moving forward with intention. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May we now call Ms. Pooja Bhojwani to present a token of gratitude. Let us now welcome Mr. Sahil Chopra, the founder and CEO of Social House Learning, director at Mark IT Agency Australia, and an international TEDx speaker. A globally recognized MUN leader, he has empowered over 25,000 students worldwide through education.